And I never felt like I had a professor that I could genuinely disclose things to and talk to and that they would understand. And maybe that's a generational thing. Maybe that's an academe thing from back in the, early 2000s. Maybe things were a little bit more standoffish. I don't know. But I know that that's what I wish I had had. And so that's what I try to be and inspire my students that way. And, Steve and I have talked about coaching up versus coaching down. And I genuinely think that for some people, I think they learn better through that positivity, through that inspiration, than just being scared out of their minds. I know that because I was scared out of my mind. And I felt like when I went into a classroom, I had to appear like I knew everything, and I had to appear like I had it put together. I mean, even in grad school, to show weakness at all, um, it took me, I was probably 30 years old before I felt comfortable saying, I don't know. And I just think that that's just something really important. And if I can teach somebody to say that when they're younger, then I think that's leading them down a better path for them versus this mentality where you just got to have it all put together and don't let people see you sweat. And it's like, no, find that person that you can confide in, that you can get advice from. Because I didn't have that.
Yeah, we've talked about that so much on this podcast before. I mean, the mentoring aspect. I mean, we all have mentors, everybody that I'm looking at on the screen, we all have folks that we look at as mentors that are, maybe even peers in our own age, but are just better at something than we are, that we aspire to be better at, and I think it's continuously surrounding yourself. And I think that in my opinion, one of the weaknesses of the human species is the cognitive bias, and having to be right and trying to have to figure out, as wrong as you are, you still have to figure out how you're still right. And that is just bullshit. Like that's a detriment to the human condition.
And I think and I hope that your students are incredibly grateful for your styles, even though you have, different styles. I think the way that you approach things is preparing your students to be incredibly successful as they go out and start their careers. Because Ashley, from your perspective, I agree, like letting go of that burden of having to feel like I have all the answers and I have everything right. Like none of us do now, like 20, 30 years into our career, let alone just starting out in our career. And so being able to let go of that burden and be vulnerable and say, I don't know, or I struggle with this, or, for me, like I have a fear of standing in lines. I have a high anxiety state where standing in lines makes me panic. And so how do I go tell my boss, like, I don't want to travel because I don't want to go to the airport and stand in the line because I'm going to freak out? Like, I should be okay being vulnerable and find people that want to support me for who I am. And then my best work comes out. And Stephen, from your perspective, I think one of the biggest challenges so many students are having in starting out their career, and I saw this back when I left graduate school, is so many wanted the opposite approach of what you're giving them, where it's like, just give me like the color by numbers. And then they get out into the real world and they're like, wait a minute, I don't get the color by numbers. And now my boss is mad at me that they want me to figure this out. So